Going on now. I don't know what to tell you, man. They putting it in your face, man. They putting it right in your face. This is no longer the NFL basketball, um, just
It's really hard watching my stuff back, but
football, um, soccer, whatever sport it is, and I would say basketball, football, some of the most um, rigged sports out there. Um, they're telling you in their face that they're playing you. How long will they run the same play and you keep falling for the same tricks? How long? You guys need to wake up, man. These sports are no different than WWE wrestling. It's the same thing.
well, yeah, I mean, I just watched that movie, and just to go into what I was saying there, I basically was just saying that most sports are rigged, and that the outcomes are already planned before you probably even watch them. They have the ref set up to make certain calls, and to keep certain games going a certain way. But anyway, this movie Him was pretty deep. I liked it. I thought it was pretty cool towards the end. I really like how horrific it got at the end, because it definitely reminded me of Revelations when he comes back and he does and Christ does his thing. But it's very symbolic. I know I've been watching a lot of people's breakdowns on it, and been pretty solid. But I think a lot of people missed the end of the movie where every the all of the I wouldn't like to call it the Illuminati, but the CIA, FBI, all these heads of states and governments that are controlling the whole entire world are going to be destroyed in the end. And that's really what the movie was like about to a certain extent, because football is a branch of the control that keeps people entertained. So this entertainment that people are receiving from this game is not only destroying kids' minds from an early age, but their bodies when they get older by playing the sport. But they do get rewarded by getting millions of dollars. But again, the scrutiny, the constant eyes on you, and all the stress that it causes in the end, it really has you scratch your head at times, and dang, is this really all worth it? Me speaking from experience, I have some friends that played in the NFL. Chris DeGear, you can look him up. Chris DeGear, he was one of the smartest brothers I know. I mean, he was a genius. I've never seen him study, and he would always get A's and B's. He would just, I mean, he might have to read over something like once or twice, but I mean, school just came to easy to him. Like the books and all that stuff. I was never like a really book smart guy. I could read something. Yeah, I can remember some of it and break it down in my own way. But as far as like taking a test and those type of things, I never liked tests. I never was a test guy. But Chris was a test guy. This guy was like a freaking scientist, bro. Like he was so freaking smart, man. He was one of the smartest athlete jocks I've ever seen in my life. But anyway, make a long story short, he got into the NFL. He made some dollars, some good money, and eventually, I called him one day, talking to him. I mean, we had like small talk success, but he also talked about how stupid he felt because of the brain injury that he gets from it's not brain injury, but I won't call it a brain injury, but you do get some. Yeah, I would call it a brain injury. Sorry, let me stop that. You do get some CTE, right, from that constant hitting your head all the time. You know what I mean? So he felt like he wasn't as smart as he used to be. So like he got dumber, essentially. So this is what happens to a lot of football players. And basketball players, they sacrifice a different part of their body, the bottom half, which is their legs, and their joints and their knees and stuff like that. And some people take even injections to stay at the top of their game, which the movie really portrayed really well. It was showing how these guys were, they was basically giving it all. They're giving it all, man. They're not playing. They're pushing it to the limit. And these goats are manufactured to the people and continuously, like, like kind of like a what is it, like a factory system, and the things that they have to do, the blood that's shed, you feel what I'm saying, and people that are killed as a result, in the process. Because at these games, we do have to understand, not only from the surface level, because a lot of people don't understand this. People die over these games. People get shot over betting in these games. A lot of things happens, and a lot of people are not going to blame it on the game specifically, but it is because of the game. The root cause of the violence and some of the deaths are because of the games. Um, Also people die as a result of playing these games. You get what I'm saying? Like they might pass out. Trying to trying to get to the next level. Also, they reveal that some of these people take steroids, and a lot of them do. They taking things that they can clean their blood. They don't have to. They're not revealed easily. These drugs that they can take. I think they have a growth hormone that a lot of them take now that they can inject into their body, and they can beat the P test. So it's so many things you can do to have clean pee, or when around the time you might get tested. I mean, you're making millions of dollars if you prep and plan. Of course, you can prep and plan for any test that's coming up that may be a piss test. You get what I'm saying? And there's ways around, even past that piss test at times, right? So I mean, to say that these guys are all clean, I would doubt it. I mean, look at Lance Armstrong. You feel what I'm saying? He fooled the world for years on years, and he was one of the greatest, right? So it's like if this guy was doing that, I mean, just imagine they can't catch everybody, and some people might be getting that past to them. So anyway, um, sports is a huge factory where they're pushing these people in and out, and not only hurting the masses because people believe that they can get into some of these circles off their talent, and a lot of times you can't. You're not gonna be fast enough. You're probably not good enough. You probably weren't born with those types of genetics. I mean, no matter how hard you work, only a certain percentage is gonna make it into that group as far as playing, for millions of dollars. So you do have to think about how many people are marketed to, because they are marketed heavily to be one of those guys. You know what I mean? Or to be a part of those guys, to be a part of that group. So that's another thing. So a lot of people are being sacrificed in that way as well. Because from a mental standpoint, you think that you can make millions of dollars, you're going to sacrifice a lot to get there. You're going to sacrifice your trajectory of your life to be in the vicinity of this game, which at the end of the day, it doesn't translate well, into the real world, as far as the football game of it, the aspect, you feel what I'm saying? Like, I guess you remembering plays, understanding the game, it does call for some type of complexity. But what I'm saying is, as far as a resume and going to the next level, there's not many options as far as like just you could just talk about the game, but I mean, at the same time, there's a limit to that. What I'm saying is this: it's not very financially compensating after you get out of the game. A lot of these guys don't become owners. A lot of them don't become successful coaches. Only a handful. So, and those spots are taken. So, they can do other things. I guess train. Stuff like that. Become mentors. I think that's another thing they probably could tap into. And you can make some pretty decent money, but I'm talking about like, as far as like, I think financially, in the long run, having some of these complex businessmen, a lot of them don't get into that circle of millionaires, like a Magic Johnson or someone like, Shaquille O'Neal. Those guys are rare. Most guys in the NBA and NFL become bankrupt actually. So not only, is it, harmful to your body, but at the end of the day, you may become, broke. So, there's a couple of goats, but when they were showing the sacrifice scene of the other players getting beat up, and that they're, there's a couple of free agents that, they're worth nothing. They're human meat shields. Like they're showing that these people, look, they don't mean anything. Hey, wait a minute. These guys are lower than us. But what they're missing, and what the guy in the end was showing, that everyone is the same, on the same level. These guys are just pushing these people through, like a meat factory, and then you're, putting their bodies out there to, be bludgeoned, and destroyed slowly. So sports is, I mean, it's a beautiful thing to watch. I love watching sports, but at the same time, there is some sinister, things to it. There's an evil there, I would say. Some people want to call it evil, but I think there is, because it's just like, I mean, it's just a part of me that knows that, my friend Chris, he would have been a doctor. I mean, the other one that I know who played football, and he was smart like that, like really book smart. He became a doctor. So I know Chris had the trajectory to become like something great from his mind, because his mind was that, he was that brilliant. But of course, because he played football, he couldn't, exercise, that part of his brain. But of course, he's still a smarter guy. I think he still has some money. He's still taking care of himself, so that's great. But a lot of those guys, they don't end up like Chris. A lot of them are broke. I think it's like 70% of them, 70% of them, like it's some high freaking number, in the NFL. 70 80% of them go broke. I mean, it's crazy. I mean, like, wow, it's a $1 billion franchise, $1 billion, staying power with, football. And then you got, $1 billion franchise with NBA. But, a lot of these guys don't, they end up with nothing at the end, after a while, with their contracts and the way that they spend money, and they don't really understand finances, because of course they're training to become one of the greatest players in the world. So like, when do you have time to become that guy? You get what I'm saying? That can really study books, and that, it's rare that you get a both, like, that gets the Thorpe Award or something like that. There was a strong safety back in the day from Florida State that did that, but that's rare. But anyway, I mean, this is a longer video, and I'm sorry for making it so long, but it's kind of ranting there a little bit as well. But I mean, I hope, people that were listening to these things were trying to tie some of what was going on into the movie, and what they seen, and what they see in sports, and some of the trailers too as well. They were very telling. With the blood, of course, that they showed at the end, of, him, actually destroying his own mentor. Because essentially, in football, it's a competitive sport, so essentially that's kind of what you do to a certain extent. You're trying to one up the next person, or your neck, or your brother. You know what I mean? You're trying to be better than him, and it's a very physical contact like sport. So all of them are being put to the meat grinder. And we call it a blood sport, and it is a blood sport, and it's a rough sport. Because, a lot of the guys that, aspire to go to the NFL don't make it, and it is called the not for long league for a reason. Because those guys get in there and get out. And the concussion movie talks about, how some of these players, I mean, man, I mean, these guys are destroyed after the game. Some of them, they don't show that as much anymore. But, look, I mean, that CTE is nothing to play with. But they just show you the glory and the money, but they don't show you a lot of the behind the scenes. And I think this movie kind of exposed some of that. But anyway, I've been talking long enough. Peace.